how you should feel. Take a listen to Michelle Obama.
Yes, I do, because we feel the difference now.
Yeah.
See, now we're feeling what not having hope feels like. You know, hope is necessary. It's a necessary concept. What else do you have if you don't have hope?
Really? This from a woman who in 2008, at 44 years old, said for the first time in her life she was proud of her country when her husband was running for president. And now, 8 years later, you're out of hope, Michelle? You've lived a life few can even imagine, at the citadel of power and prestige in the world. You and your husband, blessed by God and the American people, with the unique and historic opportunity to not only lead America from that shining place on a hill, but impact Americans and give them hope that virtually no others can. And now that you're leaving, hope is gone? Since when does hope rise and fall with you and Barack in the White House? But it doesn't end there. When asked if your husband's administration achieved his promise of hope to Americans, your answer, a resounding yes. Quote, especially in times of crisis and turmoil. Are you kidding? Did your husband give hope to the parents of James Foley or Stephen Sotloff, who was in custody for over a year while his family was told they could not negotiate because they'd be prosecuted before their sons' heads were chopped off? To try to convince America that once you and Barack exit the White House, hope is removed for America is an outrage. And I'll tell you what else is an outrage. An outrage is when your husband struts up to the microphone at a national prayer breakfast and tells Christians to get off their high horses because the Christians are afraid of Muslim terrorists cutting their heads off. And I'd say that that was a crisis, but no hope there. ISIS today only looms larger. And by the way, Michelle, have you heard of San Bernardino, Orlando, or that workplace violence that happened at Fort Hood in Texas? In times of crisis and turmoil, like the 13 hours those heroes were on a rooftop in Benghazi, your all-powerful husband never bothered to explain to us where he was and what he was doing that night. All we know is the only power that he was ready to unleash was Air Force One to fly to Las Vegas for a fundraiser the next morning so that you guys could live the life another 4 years in the White House. But I get it. For you, hope is gone. You and your family and friends won't be able to fly to another 46 countries with security and hair and makeup in tow. Michelle, you may not realize it, but Americans rejected you and everything you stand for. They know what hope is. Hope is when people, 30,000 at a time, stand in line in the cold with their children, hoping to get the glimpse of a man that they think can change the course of their lives from the downward spiral that you and Mr. Hope and Change have put them on. I'll tell you what hope and change is. Hope and change is when people show up 20,000 strong after an election, desperate to see the man who actually brought back jobs, almost 1,000, when your husband said it was impossible to bring them back at Carrier. And by the way, if you want to know what it really feels like to not have hope, just walk out of the White House. As ordinary Americans, you'll see real fast. Welcome to the America you created, the one with a racial divide, a disrespect of law enforcement and the military, illegals cruising our borders, draining our schools and social services, ISIS and refugees on the rise. No hope? Michelle, I'm surprised at you. What happened to when they go low, we go high? And that's my opening statement. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. Hashtag Judge Janine. And joining me now with a reaction, RNC Chief Strategist and Senior Communications Advisor to the Presidential Transition Team, Sean Spicer, also reportedly the leading candidate to become President-elect Trump's press secretary. Sean Spicer, thanks for being here. Can you tell us anything, any secrets?
I cannot tell you any secrets, Judge, but Merry Christmas. Thank you for having me.
Merry Christmas. You look like you could be a press secretary.
Well, thank you. As I've said before, I'd be honored to do anything I can to help this president-elect advance his agenda in Washington, because he's going to bring real change to the American people. And if you look at what he's done already, whether it was Carrier or the cabinet that he's putting together, it's unbelievable. And you know him. And I think that you know that on January 20th, it's going to start with a bang.
Oh,
he's going to get things done right off the bat.
You know, Sean, what's so amazing is that, I mean, the man hasn't stopped since he won election night. I mean, I don't think Americans have ever seen anyone like this. I mean, he's going state to state to thank people, and Americans are reacting and responding. But I want to get to some of the fascinating stuff that has been happening in the last 48 hours. You heard my open, Michelle Obama. I mean, talk about a class or lack thereof to say hope is gone when she and Barack leave the White House. I mean, isn't that a slap at the incoming president?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I think what I would actually phrase it as, change is coming. Business as usual is over. And I think for a lot of folks in the political class and the pundit class, what they're about to witness is going to be unbelievably historic in a way that no one's ever seen before. He is going to bring real change to this city. He's going to bring a record of success that is going to just shock the system throughout its core. And what I mean by that is that he doesn't take no for an answer. He picks up the phone. He gets things done. He doesn't take no for an answer. He figures out, how do I get to yes? How do I get to success? And who do I surround myself to get there with? The people that he's choosing for his cabinet are an unbelievable level of caliber that this country has never seen before. Position by position, department by department, the people that are taking these jobs. You look at a guy like Rex Tillerson, rags to riches, 8 years old, starts working to help the family.
Sean, there's going to be a lot of trouble there. A lot of talk about pushback, and not only pushback to Tillerson, but you've got Hollywood now, and Michael Moore saying that Trump shouldn't even be admitted into the White House. And you've got Martin Sheen, you know, I guess he was in the West Wing on a TV show, so he thinks he knows all about it. You know, they're taking out these PSA, these ads saying, everybody, we've got to stop Trump from coming into the White House. Who are these people?
The interesting thing about this, Judge, is that they don't understand what's going on in this country. It was the same people who predicted a coronation for Hillary Clinton, who planned a fireworks celebration on the Hudson River. They don't get it. The American people are tired of business as usual, and Donald Trump's bringing change like they've never seen before. The problem with Hollywood is that they don't get it. They don't understand the frustrations and concerns that average middle Americans feel right now, that they're living paycheck to paycheck, that their health care costs are going up, that a government's unresponsive and doesn't take care of the veterans that have gone and served this nation. Donald Trump gets it in a way that nobody's gotten before, and he's going to get things done in a way that no one's ever gotten before. I think it scares them. That's what the problem is that they've been used to coming in, Republican or Democrat, cozying up to the elites and sort of being able to go to their cocktail parties. That's not what Donald Trump wants. He wants to come in and make this country better. He wants every American to have a better life. And that's something that scares the people who have used to living off of Washington's business as usual.
As Hollywood and the New York elites and a lot of the East Coast elites, I should say, you know, take out these public service spots and you know, the campaign supposedly cost how much to try to stop Donald Trump and get these electorates, these electoral college people to change their vote, which isn't going to happen. I mean, why are they spending so much money now?
Well, they spent a lot during the campaign, and it didn't have an effect. So,
but it's not going to have an effect now. Are these people
it's not.
delirious?
It's not. But I think there's a bigger issue that I'm sort of, and I know a lot of times conservatives get hit with constantly bashing the media. But where are the stories about these Hollywood elites asking electors to flip? This is unbelievable. Donald Trump won. 2,600 counties in this country voted for him. 62 million people, 306 electoral votes, and they're spending, almost $1 million right now trying to influence electors to switch.
Yeah.
That is it's unbelievable. And no one in the mainstream media is calling outrage on this. It's unbelievable.
But you know what, Sean? I think for the first time, the American people get it. And they do because of Donald Trump. Sean
They do.
Spicer.
You're absolutely right.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Merry Christmas, Judge.
Merry Christmas. And joining me now, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN and Fox News contributor John Bolton, also been named as a potential candidate for the Trump administration's Deputy Secretary of State. Ambassador, thanks for being here. And I could ask you about whether or not you are or have been offered the position of second. And I understand that when you're asked that, you go dead silent. Is that true?
No, I never go silent, but I just don't answer the question.
Okay, so it won't matter how I asked or whether or not you take it or whether or not you've been offered it?
Right, no matter how persistent.
Okay. All right, Laura, let's talk about Russia. Russia right now is being accused of all kinds of things, and the president comes out yesterday and he says, I went to China to that G20 in the beginning of September, and I handled it face-to-face, and I told Putin to cut it out. You think Putin was shaking in his KGB boots?
Sure he was. He undoubtedly was thinking of that red line in Syria and wondering what kind of line this was. You know, the president President Obama has become a parody of himself, and I think we're seeing the consequences, whether it's from Russia or China, Iran, North Korea. They think they can get away with close to anything, and unfortunately, they're very close to being right. So I just want to say, I think we've got about a month left now until January the 20th. It could be a very dangerous period for the United States.
But what's so incredible, Ambassador, is that on the one hand, the president is saying that, he didn't want to ostensibly get involved because it didn't want to make it look like he was trying to tip the scales in an election. But no one ever says that what was released in the form of the DNC emails and Podesta and Hillary's was untruthful or tampered with. The president, you would think if he's concerned about an election, would say, Donna Brazil, CNN, somebody getting questions ahead of a debate is wrong. This impacts the democracy. No, he's saying Putin's involved, but he can't prove it. No evidence, nothing.
Well, undoubtedly, behind the classification wall, there is evidence of who the hacker was. And people that I respect who have seen this evidence think it was Russia. It could be somebody else. I think there are two questions. One, whatever happened, one has to ask, did it have an impact on the election itself? And as to that, I don't think there's any evidence of any influence at all. Podesta may think he's an important person, but actually I don't think most people really cared what was in his email. Mm-hmm. But the preliminary question is, did Russia or some other foreign intelligence service try to influence the election to break trust and confidence in the government? If that's right, this is very serious. And despite the fact it may not have had an impact on the election, we cannot accept that.
But Ambassador, there is no claim that the Russians tampered with voting machines or ballots or anything like that. The claim that the mainstream media doesn't seem to make clear is that, oh my goodness, they released emails that of the DNC people talking to each other. Correct?
Yeah. Well, I don't expect an authoritarian society to have much of an insight into how to affect elections, but to me, it's far less relevant whether they had an impact than whether they tried. Think back to December 7, 1941. If Japan had attacked Pearl Harbor, but all of its bombs and torpedoes had missed, we would be thankful for that, but we would nonetheless be concerned about the fact of the attack itself.
Right, but are you suggesting that they tried to do more than just release the emails? Because Julian Assange of WikiLeaks said they had nothing to do with it. Although, should we believe him?
Of course, I don't believe anything Julian Assange says, but even given that, what he said was the Russian government didn't. And I think this is sort of like a Bill Clinton question. It depends on what the definition of Russian government is to Julian Assange. That's why I say, honestly, all of us out here in the unclassified world, I think, are at a disadvantage. And that's one reason that I believe that to protect the integrity of our system against these wild accusations, we ought to have a congressional investigation.
Okay.
I look for Mike Pompeo, when he becomes director of the CIA, to help clear this up as well.
Okay, so you're going to take that second position in... No, yes.
Persistent. I really admire it, but, I'll give you my name, rank, and serial number. That's about it.
All right, Ambassador Bolton, thanks so much for being with us.
Glad to do it.
Scott Baio said he was assaulted at his child's school for supporting Trump. Tonight, he's here to actually talk about it. And next up, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, joins me to discuss the latest move in the Obama playbook regarding Russia. He's got some tough words for the outgoing president. You might want to wait and hear it. Plus a special treat. Throughout the hour, we're going to look back at some of my favorite moments from your favorite segment, Street Justice, like the time I visited a Biker for Trump rally in Cleveland. Buckle up. Justice is rolling on. Can you tell us why you're here today? No, I'm asking Donald. He's not answering. All right, you want to tell us why you're here today? Turn around.
I am here to support Donald Trump and do what we can just to give him a warm welcome in our city.
What are you packing today?
40 millimeter. Take it everywhere like my MasterCard.
Like
I don't leave home without it.
Another big week for President-elect Trump with more administration picks as the countdown to the inauguration day is on. Earlier, I spoke with author of the best-selling book Treason, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich, about a few things, including President Obama's blame game against the Russians after the Democrats lost the election. Mr. Speaker, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
I'm delighted to be with you, and it's exciting times.
It certainly is. And, President Obama yesterday held his last press conference of 2016, and he said some rather interesting things. And I want to start with his discussion of this Russian interference with the 2016 election. Now, I found it fascinating that the president said that the intelligence agencies were aware that the Russians were interfering with the elections. So in early September of 2016, President Obama says that he saw Putin in China in early September, and he told him to cut it out. That's a quote. And yet, a month after the election, September, October, November, 3 months later, President Obama comes out and he is demanding that there be an investigation as to whether or not the Russians interfered with the election. What is going on?
They lost. That's what's going on. You had poor John Podesta had this article about the fact that all this thing is happening and it's all the FBI's fault. And you realize then this guy ran a campaign that raised $1 billion. $1 billion. He had the President of the United States on his side. He had the elite news media on his side. And his candidate lost. Now, he could either say, I failed. Or he could say, the Russians did it. And I think he's decided he has a better future claiming the Russians did it.
And the amazing...
it's absurd.
The amazing part of it is, I don't believe, Mr. Speaker, that anyone has denied that anything that was hacked, and Julian Assange says Russia had nothing to do with it, whether you believe that or not, they don't deny that what was in those emails wasn't accurate.
Well, notice what the core of their argument is. That by hacking into the emails, they let the American people know things that were true. The Russians didn't write the emails. Hillary Clinton did. John Podesta did. Everything that's really embarrassing and damaging came either from Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, their top staff, or John Podesta, their campaign manager. But their argument is, even though what they wrote was really embarrassing, that it's not their fault it became public, and therefore it's the Russians' fault for making public how bad what they were doing was. I mean, if you think about that logic, again, you're a judge. I'm a historian. I'm not a lawyer. But it strikes me, I wouldn't want to take their case into court and try to defend their logic.
Be dismissed before the other side had an opportunity to present theirs. But what is so fascinating is, when I was listening for the excuse that the president might use, he said, well, 17 intelligence agencies said that Russia was involved in interfering. And yet his reason for not getting involved before the election was, I wanted the American people to decide. Well, it takes him 5 weeks or a month later to say, we're going to have the intelligence agencies investigated again. And now the pressure is on Donald Trump to further the investigation. But isn't this nothing more than an attempt to delegitimize the victory of Donald Trump?
Look, I don't think anything done by outsiders changed the ultimate outcome. The fact is, when it mattered, key voters in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania said, I don't want Hillary Clinton. And they voted for Donald J. Trump, period. That's the underlying fact. But I will say, and I said this all the way back in 2014, when the North Koreans were apparently hacking into Sony, we need, and I have no problem with hearings that look at the totality of the cyber threat to the United States. I think that would be very healthy and very important. And if this particular story is a part of that, that's fine. But to narrow it down to something which, frankly, even the intelligence agencies don't agree on. I mean, there's a big argument inside the intelligence community over whether or not this even happened.
Exactly. And, I thought it was fascinating and I think consistent with President Obama's, his whole personality is during the press conference. He said, well, my message to Russia is, quote, we can do stuff to you. I don't know how you took that, Mr. Speaker, but I thought it was rather weak. But do you want to comment on that?
Well, let me just say two things about Barack Obama. One, of course it was weak because he's weak. He's been weak for 8 years. A lot of what drives us crazy about Putin is in reaction to the weakness of John Kerry and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. It'll change dramatically, I think, when you get to the brand new team of Donald J. Trump, Rex Tillerson, and Jim Mattis. I think at that point you're going to see a very different relationship with Putin almost instantly. But there's a second part. Imagine that you're Barack Obama. Imagine you were confident all year long your legacy was going to be intact. Imagine you were confident all day on Election Day you were going to make sure a liberal won so the Supreme Court would go to the left. Sometime around 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock election night, Barack Obama began to see his legacy shrink and shrink and shrink. It's like one of those clown dolls as the air goes out. And all of a sudden he's faced with the reality, his legacy is mostly 70 or 80% of it going to be repealed sometime either on the inaugural day with executive orders by Trump or during the following 60 or 90 days. I suspect you got a guy there who's in turmoil.
I suspect, and so it sounded last night. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, thanks so much for being with us.
Always great to be with you.
Thank you. The political panel is on deck, and then attacked for supporting Donald Trump. Scott Baio is here to talk about what he says happened to him at his daughter's school. And remember, all night long, we look back on my favorite street justice moments, like the time I just had to go to Moe's at the height of the election season. We'll be right back. I'm at Modell Sporting Goods, and I am practicing because I think it's important that any commander-in-chief needs to be in great physical shape. Do you think either of the candidates are really in good physical shape?
No.
Why do you say that? Their doctors say they're in good physical shape.
They're old.
Here I am with the neoprene weights, and I somehow think that our president had these. It's not normally what I work out with. To be commander-in-chief, you have to be able to lift the big ones. President-elect Trump wraps his thank you tour today, holding his final rally in Alabama. This as his incoming administration prepares to take over in just a little over a month. Let's get right to all the latest transition news with my political panel tonight, GOPAC Chairman and Republican strategist David Avella, and the Communications Director at Democracy for America, Neil Soroka. All right, good evening, gentlemen. A lot of talk right now about Russia, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm going to ask you this, Neil. The president says that he was aware of this during the election, but chose not to do anything other than tell Putin to knock it off. And then a month later, he basically comes back and says, we've got to do this. We've got to get this thing investigated completely. And, if he does wrap this up, this investigation, what exactly can he do to Russia?
Well, Judge, one correction here. He actually did more than just tell Putin to knock it off. He actually talked to Mitch McConnell and Speaker Ryan and asked them to do a joint statement in early October, and Mitch McConnell shut him down because he thought he knew it wasn't going to help Donald Trump to let the world know that Putin was trying to make him president. So, as for what the president can do, I think part of it is we need to figure out some back-channel operations that we can do against Putin.
This is a president who signs executive orders all the time. He doesn't usually need the other side, but you
would have been calling it partisan politics if he had done that himself, and so instead he stood down, and look what happened. We're now going to have a Putin puppet in the White House.
Then why did he wait a month after the election to call for an investigation? And why on November 17th did Clapper say they couldn't connect it to Russia?
Well, and since then, they've said that they can connect it to Russia. The FBI agrees with them. All of the 17 intelligence agencies agree with the CIA's assessment. So listen, at the end of the day, the question is why don't you care that a foreign government very well was trying to intrude in this election and really do a 9/11 style assault on American democracy?
Can you tell me, Neil, exactly how they tried to intrude? That's by leaking the emails.
Yeah, by leaking information. Yeah, this is a classic Russian compromise operation where they're leaking embarrassing information to try to get folks like us talking about it on television and distracting voters from the real issues, which were the bigoted and divisive agenda that Donald Trump was running on throughout the campaign.
Let's hear it.
The Democrats are finally talking about it could be a national security issue, though their main talking point is still that Russia tried to influence our elections, which first it was Jim Comey, then it was the Electoral College. Now it's Russia. I mean, next week, Judge, it's going to be the Mercury retrograde of September that caused Hillary Clinton to lose the election a couple days ago. I mean, it's going to be a new excuse as to why Hillary Clinton lost. It's their therapy to get through, and they should do that. Now, is Russia potentially hacking the U.S. a national security threat? Yes.
Yes,
and
of course.
Should we be looking into it? Yes, we should be looking to it. Is it the reason Hillary Clinton lost? No.
Okay.
Oh, there's lots of reasons why Hillary Clinton lost, not the least of which is she ran a campaign that got close enough that Russian interference could have played a factor. But at the end of the day, Neil,
accept the fact that had Hillary Clinton not written those emails, had Podesta not written those emails, had she not had a private server, had she not been a terrible candidate, that's why she would have lost.
I would love to have seen what Republican turnout would have been like if the other side had leaked that kind of emails. If the Republican emails had been out there, I would have loved to see what Republican turnout would have been, because it would have been a disaster. You guys had a knife fight on your side over and over again, and everyone knew what a fraud Donald Trump was from the very start, and those emails would have been delicious to read.
Really? America seemed to reject Hillary Clinton as a fraud with the Clinton Foundation, which, as I understand it, is still under active investigation. I wouldn't throw that word around too freely. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Rex Tillerson. What do you think is going to happen with him, Neil?
What do I think is going to happen with him? I mean, listen, this goes back to the Russian emails. This is a guy who's close to Putin. This is a God's gift to Russia, basically, to have Rex Tillerson in there. This is someone who is very close to Putin, and we'd expect him to be the similar sort of, do the same sort of appeasement that Donald Trump has done over the course of his campaign.
David?
Yeah, it was my understanding that our top diplomat was supposed to be able to make allies with foreign nations, was supposed to be able to represent America's view to foreign nations, and was supposed to get the best deal possible. All the things Rex Tillerson has done. And to suggest that somehow he doesn't understand, as a CEO, who ultimately the boss is, which is the President of the United States, and it is the President's agenda who he will be representing to foreign nations, is somewhat laughable. And it's why, at the end of the day, Rex Tillerson will ultimately be approved, including getting Democrat votes, because you already hear folks like Joe Manchin talking about how he's going to vote for him.
Listen, Rex Tillerson has made a career glad-handing tyrants and ignoring...
Glad-handing tyrants?
That's what he's done.
Obama
That's how he's made billions of dollars for ExxonMobil.
$150 billion.
Well, we'll see how he comports himself in office, if he's actually going to stand up for human rights when he's looked the other way over and over again in his career, and when he's directly ignored State Department requirements in international trade. That's the kind of person that we're doing. Someone who's over and over again ignored.
It is laughable after the last 7 years to hear a Democrat talk about it.
Scott Baio is next. Plus, the best of street justice. Remember the time I tried to play the role of a Hillary Clinton aide, smashing those blackberries to smithereens? Take a look. Justice rolls on in a moment.
I'm looking for a hammer that is strong enough to get rid of a blackberry. You have any of that stuff?
American made or import?
I like American, although I don't know what she likes.
Now I'm going to make believe I'm one of Hillary's aides destroying the evidence.
You know what it takes to destroy a blackberry? I gotta tell you, look at my arms. I have strong arms, okay? What did it take for them to destroy the evidence in Hillary's case? A lot. I'm gonna use both hands. I'm getting better at this, Jimmy. So for them to destroy the blackberries with a hammer took a lot of work, a lot of intent. Jim Comey, if this ain't intent, then there's no such thing.
So Michael Moore says Donald Trump has no right to enter the White House. Martin Sheen leads a pack of washed-up celebrities trying to sway electors against the president-elect. And prominent Trump supporter Scott Baio allegedly attacked at an event at his daughter's school. What's going on? Let's have Scott now. Joining me now, actor and outspoken supporter of President-elect Donald Trump, Scott Baio. All right, Scott, you came out on this show supporting Donald Trump. You actually speak at the convention, and you come on after the election, and you think it's over. But this week, you're at your daughter's holiday Christmas party at school, and Bailey, your daughter's 9 years old. You come out, you're minding your own business, and all of a sudden, somebody attacks you, allegedly. This Hot Chili Peppers drummer's wife, she comes at you, allegedly, and because you're a Trump supporter. What happened?
Right. I don't want to talk about what happened, Judge, because it's a pending investigation. But listen, quite honestly, I don't need to be here tonight, nor do I want to be. It has nothing to do with you. I love you. But I've got a lot going on. My mom died 10 days ago, 3 days before this event happened at my kid's school. I've got a young boy, family member, 6 years old. He's got a very aggressive leukemia. I got a lot going on, so I don't need this, but I felt like I should come on because this has got to stop. I should not be put in a position where I'm afraid for my life and the life of my 9-year-old daughter because of my political beliefs, right? We won the election, and I didn't say boo in 08 or 12. I didn't say boo, but we won the election, and to quote the great President Barack Obama, elections have consequences. We won. You lost. Grow the blank up. Move on with your life. He's the president-elect, and he'll be president on January 20th. Grow up, be a man, be a woman. It's over. And stop this madness with all of your antics of Russia and whatever other silly goofball arguments you want to come up with.
All right. Now, Scott, look, I know you, and you were very clear you don't want to talk about the facts, and I understand that. But you and I agree. It isn't necessarily about this, and LA is seriously considering charging this woman, and based on the facts as that are already out, that are already published, that your daughter actually had to cover her ears because of the language that was being used by the wife of this Chili Peppers drummer, allegedly, and the cursing and the physical abuse that went on because you're a Trump supporter. This is symptomatic of a bigger issue. And finally, what we've got to try to figure out is, what is it about the left that makes them think that they have the right to control America?
I think that the core belief of liberals in this country is some sense of entitlement, that they're entitled to power. I don't know what they base it on. I think maybe because they all watch their own news and it becomes this very sort of vicious cycle where they believe their own press. Here's the one positive thing about this, in my opinion. I think now, for the first time, the American people are getting to see what these people are really like. Mm-hmm. They are despicable human beings, a lot of them. They are. Not all of them. My agent is a dear friend of mine, and I love him like a brother. He's a hardcore liberal. I play golf with him. I love him. I hang out with him. We go to dinner. We talk politics. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of these people, there's a sense of entitlement, and I don't know where it comes from, but the American people are now seeing what's going on. I mean, you look at that poor man that voted for Trump that was pulled out of his car and beaten up.
Beaten.
You know, it's gotten to the point where I hope when Trump gets in there, that he shuts all this down by allowing the police to do their job.
I think that's going to happen. And Scott Baio, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I know you didn't want to do it, but I think it's important for it to be done. And I hope Bailey is okay. And our condolences to you. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right. And the best of the year in Street Justice is next. Don't move. All night long, I've been showing you the best moments from 2016 in Street Justice. What a year and what an election season it was. Here now are some more of our favorites. Enjoy.
You don't know who that person is.
What's her name? Who is it? Hillary Clinton? She's likable.
She's likable? What has she done for you?
Nothing.
You want her to be the president?
Why not? Sure. I'm sorry. I'm not really a cameraman.
Why? You got a warrant outstanding somewhere? So Ted Cruz.
Was arrested.
I probably did arrest him.
Do you know of any country that's been a socialist country?
No.
No?
I wasn't great in history class.
Well, it's happening now.
And why isn't the White House ready for a woman?
I guess because I'm a male chauvinist.
You know what? There's a lot of tough women out there.
Sure are.
All right.
And you're one of them.
He's concerned about the Second Amendment, but he doesn't have a gun.
Well, we technically can't bring guns in here.
I don't mean do you have a gun here, but do you own a gun?
Absolutely.
Why did that not surprise me? Why do you have a gun?
Because it's all right. And they're fun.
What do you do?
I'm a hairdresser.
Who are you voting for?
Who I'm voting for? Clinton.
Clinton?
I think she'd be better than Trump. Trump talk a lot of mess.
Trump talk a lot of mess, but Trump signs in front of a lot of checks. That's what she thinks of the presidential candidate.
Yeah, miserable.
Yeah, I'm the judge.
You're the one.
Yeah, I'm the one, honey. Now listen.
I watch you all day long.
You do? Why, you outside my window?
I'm Canadian. It wouldn't help you.
She's Canadian. What do you think of what's going on in this country with this election?
You have a tough decision to make.
Yeah?
You know, I'm looking at both your candidates, and
Why, you think Trudeau is such a walk in the park?
I think he's a little more sophisticated than a couple of candidates that you have.
Are you worried about the open borders, us United States citizens coming into Canada? If you were to gamble on this election, who would you gamble on?
Hillary, for sure.
Hillary. Yeah. Is it a woman thing?
No, it's not voting for an idiot thing.
Yeah, what's she done for you?
What has she done for me?
Yeah, give me an idea. Therein lies the problem. And what about the fact that Bill Clinton had to pay women money because of what he did to them?
Well, Bill Clinton not running for president.
But what about the fact that the women say that Hillary Clinton came after them?
I would probably go after them too.
Where are we going with this interview?
Whose interview? This is a world led by a woman. And you are having a new woman president.
No.
Yes.
No.
She is doing well.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, again.
Let's see who wins.
So here I am in Lafayette Park in front of the White House where a new family is going to be moving in January. How do you feel about them moving in?
Well, I think that they are a good change for the country, even though a lot of people don't want to give them a chance. Trump, we need some more jobs.
Bernie Sanders was going to be the person we needed for jobs for American graduates just because of his youth initiative.
No, we need Trump. We need Trump to give us more jobs.
Say something nice.
Let's make America great again together.
Together.
Together. What do you think a Trump administration is going to offer? And I don't care what your answer is, so say whatever you want.
I'm deeply worried about what it's going to offer.
Now, all right.
Oh my God, we're back. I mean, America's back. We're gonna take control of the government and really clean up the house, drain the swamp.
Barack Obama's term is over.
Over!
The people have spoken. Accept your loss and be a crybaby.
Be a man. Put on your big boy pants and deal with it, you crybabies. Let's just say Merry Christmas. Okay, together. Safe. 1, 2, 3.
Bye. Be safe.
Merry Christmas. We'll be right back. That's it for us tonight. I want to wish each and every one of you at home a Merry Christmas. And you